All right. We're gonna try it like this because I don't know. All right, we're gonna try it this way because I don't know what was going on with the other one, but this looks a million times better. Hopefully it works better too. All right, so that's the hope. All right, maybe we'll wait for somebody to hopefully join us. Hopefully somebody will join us. Please, somebody look. Yeah. Hopefully somebody joins us in here for all of our lonesome. Maybe I'll play a blues. Wow. Maybe some people will join in, hopefully. Let's see. So all right. So, actually I should make sure I got it right under my hands. All right, so we'll do A blues. Man, I'm rusty. I'm so rusty. I don't play the blues as much as I used to. And so you lose what you don't use, right? But then what's the other saying? They say, um, once you learn, you never forget or something. I don't know if I agree. Sometimes it works that way, sometimes it doesn't. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it just requires a bit of playing it over and over again for me to kind of pick it back up. All right. So let's get started on this. The three top simple legendary riffs, right? So we got. All right, so yeah, what you just heard was the three simple but legendary riffs that every guitar player should know, right? And I'm a guitar player based out of Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Stefan Lamar, And I'm going to show you how to play each of them. So, first one you heard was Sunshine of Your Love by Cream, the great Eric Clapton. Everybody should know some Eric Clapton. All right, so that first that riff you heard is just a blues scale, but it's in D, right? So you think of the blues scale, we got a right that blues scale. We're gonna play it a little different to that. We're gonna play it. We're gonna shift a little bit when we do it, right? So we're gonna start on that 12th fret, which is the 12th fret of the D string, which is the fourth string. So we're gonna use our picking hand to point to that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. We're gonna start there. We're gonna place our third finger of our fretting hand on that, and then we're gonna play that fret and the 10th fret. So 12th fret, 10th fret. All right, that's the first half, and then we're gonna go down to the A string, which is the fifth string, and we're gonna play start on the 12th fret of that string as well. I'm gonna play the 12th, 11th, and 10th fret. We're gonna use our third, second, and first finger. Right, so both being played together. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Right, easy. All right, and then the last part of that, we're gonna shift down to the 10th fret of the E string right here. And then we're gonna play the 8th fret of the A string right here on with that first finger. Right. So all together, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Right. Yeah. And what's cool about that is that it teaches you how to shift. Right. So earlier I just showed you most people learn the blues scale. Most people learn it in that one position. Right. But this teaches you kind of how to shift. Right. And if you shift, right, you get kind of a cool line there just from using that particular shape. It's always easier going up than it is going down. Right. So you get a cool shape just by doing that. So that's just a cool thing that comes from just learning that riff right there. All right. And then the next riff we got is Seven Nation Army. Everybody knows this, right? Everybody's heard it at least, right? So this one, we're going to play a little different from Jack White. It's about the White Stripes, by the way. We're going to play it starting on the 7th fret of the A string, right? And we're going to place that third finger there, and then we're going to play the 5th fret of the D string with our first finger. Right, and then we're going to just use our first finger for the rest of it. So that's the first sequence right there. So 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to go to that 5th fret right there. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to go to the 3rd fret of the A string. 1, 2, 3, 4, down a half step to the 2nd fret with our first finger, right? That's the cool thing I like to do. It's like to add pedal notes to that, right? Again, because you want to take all these lines and kind of use them into like being more creative, right? We don't want to just be limited to just playing it, right? The point of learning riffs in the first place is to get you to play music, right? Because a lot of times as guitar players, we just want to just, play stuff. Right, we just want to do stuff like that. But that's not really music, like, because there's no context to it, right? We're relying hopefully on somebody playing, rhythm section to hopefully legitimize what we're doing, right? But we want to be able to sound like music without the band behind us, right? If you play any of these riffs, it's like you sound like the band All right, you sound like the band could just come in at any moment. It's already kind of there, right? Right. All right. So, anyways, let's go to the last one. Last one is "Smoke on the Water." Now, everybody learns this riff wrong. I learned it wrong, and I think primarily that was because I never really listened to the song. And I know a lot of you probably out there did listen to the song at first, maybe. Right. It's like, um, and most people probably don't even get past the first minute, if you're being honest. But yeah, I learned it like this. Yeah, completely wrong. Right. So everybody uses the power chords, but really, it's not a power chord. It uses double stops. Right. Double stops are just two notes being played at once. It's not a chord. A chord has to be three notes. Okay. A double stop is only two. So it uses double stops, but just differently. Right. So we're gonna take our third and fourth finger and place those on the fifth fret of the D and the A string. Right. You play something like that with the two fingers right there. So bringing that pinky in. Pinky doesn't get used a lot in a lot of music, but bringing that pinky in, right? And then we're going to go to the third fret of the D and the G string. And it's like a mini bar. It's an introduction to bars. If you're a beginner learning this, it's like your introduction to bar chords. You're just going to bar two strings. And by the way, I think Richie Blackmore played this with his fingers, right? But you can use a pick too. You just have to be more accurate with where you're hitting that, right? I'd be more accurate about it. And then the last part of that is, again, we're going to use the pinky and the third finger on the D and the G string. And then we go up a half step from that last one. So that's really how it's played, not that bar chord. I think a lot of it comes from the harmonics that you'll hear in the tone. When you have some gain, you hear that the harmonics of different notes that are not there come out, but really it's just being played with two notes, and it's no low note. Now, what's cool about that and how we can use that is this kind of comes from the blues scale in itself, right? The cool thing, that blue note that we add from a normal pentatonic, it kind of gives it a bit of tension. That's what's so great about that note in the blues scale. It adds tension to it. So if you think about that when we're playing that line, it's like almost like a surprise. Like, right, you think it's going to be the same thing twice. It's like a bit of tension added to that. So we can use that in our blues, right? So if you think of you playing a G blues in the same position, right? Right. It's like a note that you're using to get somewhere, right? And in this case, we're using it to get back down. So right? So we're using it to go back down, you're using it to go up. That's how that note really works when it comes to the blues scale. It's really just a note that kind of like adds a bit of more attention to where you're going, right? It's not really one that you kind of want to sit on, right? It always wants to resolve. You can't just play that note and not like resolve it. It just doesn't sound as great if you don't resolve it somewhere. So that's kind of what you want to take away from that line. So and if we think about that, even so, we just use the blues scale on Smoke on the Water, and we use it on Sunshine of Your Love, right? Now let's add what we know from Smoke on the Water to Sunshine of Your Love, right? So we had these double stop things, right? We had those double stop things. Well, we can add that to Sunshine of Your Love to beef up the main riff, right? If I add the same kind of line underneath there, right? I'm using that same technique, right? And then so you get a bit of an interesting kind of sound, right? You can add it to the Jack White thing that we just did. This was a thing that guitar players kind of did to beef up, to add some more low end to their sounds. Instead of down tuning, sometimes we would just add the fifth below the note that we were playing, right? And if you had a bass player playing too, it kind of helps sell the fact that you're playing something uh, a little lower, right? It's just a thing that guitar players did back in the day, or not even back in the day. I mean, we kind of still do that now. One of the most famous songs that I think of that kind of does that is the Fall Out Boy song. I can't remember how it goes. Something like that. But it just adds a little more low end to what we're doing, right? So we can take. So again, from the first line, from the Sunshine of Your Love, what we learned, we can shift our blues scale. Right? I just did that from shifting what we already learned. Right? And then you can go back the other way if I can get it. That's the same line that I'm just taking it up an octave, right? Which is a neat and effective way to spice up your playing too. It's to always should always learn things in different octaves because it adds different flavor, right? Sometimes adding the next octave higher is going to add more energy to what you're playing. And it could be the same thing, but it's just like it adds just a little more energy to what you're doing, right? Or sometimes adding something lower adds more energy to what you're playing because it's like almost building up to something, right? The lower you go, kind of builds up. That's why we kind of go right. It builds up to something when you play low. When you play high, it's like more energy in there, right? Right? Just add some energy when you're playing up higher, when you're coming down from low to high, right? Yeah, like you're going somewhere, you're going up somewhere, right? And that's pretty much it, right? So I just wanted to point out like three riffs. I mean, maybe you guys can drop in the chat maybe some ones that I should cover outside of that. And I also want to give you some of the tips on how to do some things that are different to just learning. Because again, as I said earlier, you want to get to learning music. You never want to get bogged down by just single note stuff because out of context, sometimes the single note stuff doesn't translate well. Sometimes if you're not playing to the chord changes, right? If you're playing right, you got to play to the chord changes. let me actually put a groove to that. If it makes more sense. All right. Uh, it has to sound like you're playing those changes with on yourself. You can only get there by playing music. Honestly, I mean, because where you're pulling from is melodies, right? There's really only two ways to like improve on guitar, honestly. And most people won't really say this, but the only two ways to really improve are to learn people's solos and songs and to learn patterns. That's it, because that's all that matters, right? You learn people's solos for the language, right? You're learning like how to bend something. You're learning um, how to slide, how rhythmically to play in the blues versus rock versus country versus R&B, right? That's why you learn other people's stuff. You also get in context, right? You learn patterns because patterns are what builds tension, right? And it's you could build and it's what adds release, right? You play one note, that's release. And tension is the patterns in between, right? It's like when you're playing a scale, just a major scale, right? That's a pattern. And then the tension is relieved when you get back to the root or the octave. Right? Yeah. Right? When you get to the end, it's like, oh, the tension's released, right? Even though you can hear where it's going. And then the hard part about improvisation, though, is the fact that you can't be predictable as well. So patterns, that's why people don't really like patterns, right? They're like, man, you just sound like a robot, right? Because it becomes predictable. So you have to be in the middle, right? Which is a bit of predictability with a bit of surprise element involved into that. And I didn't know this was really going to devolve into a talk about improvisation, but here we are. All right. So it has to be a bit of surprise element with a bit of predictability, right? Because that's just how it works. You just play up and down a scale, it's very predictable. But if you again add like we did over that smoke on the water, if you add a bit of tension, it's like, oh wait, that came out of nowhere. That's different. Right? It's like you're pulling somebody somewhere. It's like where are you going? What are you about to do next? Right? That's what you want to kind of get out of soloing, right? Is that element. I need some delay, man. I need some delay in there. Here, let's try this. You also got to know your keys. I'm up here going in and out of the wrong keys, guys. Yeah, you gotta know what you're doing when you're playing these things. Like it's like, what am I doing? Pick a key and stick in that key. You gotta know all your changes in that key. Right. Yeah, if I stick to a key, you're gonna be good to go. Anybody have any questions? See, we got a couple of people in this right now. Um, I kind of covered all the stuff within like 10 minutes. I didn't know it would happen that fast, but yeah, we did it all very quick. Um, Let me see here. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I mean, that was the top three that I would say that every guitar player has to know. All right. Again, so that was, um, right, very easy. And then you have the Seven Nation Army. Again, the cool thing about that I didn't mention earlier is that just rhythm wise, that's just an interesting, right? It's like if even if I keep the rhythm myself, it's like it just survives on its own. That's what you want in a melody or a riff, something that can survive on its own. Right, very easy, right? And then we had Smoke on the Water. That was the other one. In case any of you guys missed this, and again, we learned it the right way, the correct way, right? And the hard part about that is again to not try to add your own flavor into that, right? You don't want to get into you also want to play that bad. You want to play that as bad as I did, very poor. But you want to again, you want to how to accent. Just it's just fair staccato and straight to the point, right? Very straight to the point, staccato. You got to get that part down, right? Before you start adding all your other flavor into that. And again, that's just taken from the blues scale, right? We're just playing those and double stops. Right. Right. So, and then you get used to doing those double stops right there, right? And you started to learn a bit more how to play some rock riffs with that. Right. Start experiment with these things, guys. You got to rhythmically experiment with them. That's what makes this all fun and and you start to come up with your own ideas out of that, right? I just made that up right there. Uh, All right, cool. I think I'm gonna stop it right there, guys. I'm glad we got some people in here this time. I think I might start just streaming straight from YouTube. It seems like that works the best for me. But yeah, I'll try to continue these streams going forward, and I'll turn these will be turned into videos and stuff, all that. But yeah, thank you guys for joining in, and see you guys in the next one.